If you've ever been deep in a national park, past the last "You are here" sign, past the picnic areas and the families and the cell phone signal, you know the woods don't feel like regular nature anymore. They feel old. And when you work out there long enough, you start to learn a strange truth most visitors never consider. The forest doesn't just hide animals. It hides things that know you're there. Tonight I'm sharing 3 stories that were told to me by park rangers and forest workers. The kind of people who don't scare easy. The kind of people who know what a cougar sounds like, what a lost hiker looks like, and what it means when everything goes quiet at once. These are 3 scary park ranger stories that will give you chills. I got hired as a seasonal ranger at a national park out west when I was 23. It was the kind of job you brag about online: sunrise patrols, smoky campfires, trail rescues, and those perfect views that look fake in pictures. The reality was different. The park was huge. Bigger than most people could understand until they saw it on a map. Thousands of acres of forest and rock and ravines, with trails noted by thin lines like somebody tried to summarize a whole wilderness with a pen. My station was small. Just a ranger cabin, a radio tower, a maintenance shed, and a visitor's kiosk a few miles down the road. Most of the time, I was alone on patrol. The first week, the senior ranger, his name was Cardin, told me a rule that made me laugh at first. He said, "If you hear someone calling your name in the woods, don't answer." I remember smiling like he was messing with me. He didn't smile back. He just leaned forward in his chair and said, slow and flat, "Don't answer." Cardin had that kind of face that looked permanently tired, like he'd been awake for 5 years. He'd been with the park for over a decade, which meant he'd seen everything: wildfires, suicides, bear attacks, bodies in rivers. I asked him why. He looked at me for a long second, then said, "People repeat sounds out there. Echoes. Birds. Drifters. Your head, when you're alone too long. But if it's your name, it's usually none of those." That was all he gave me. The next few days were normal. Then I got my first solo call out. A woman had come to the visitor's kiosk around late afternoon, frantic, hands shaking, telling the volunteer her boyfriend hadn't returned from a day hike. His name was Eric. He'd gone up a popular trail called Red Elk Ridge, said it was easy, and left with 1 water bottle like an idiot. The volunteer radioed it in. I got dispatched because I was closest. The sun was already leaning low when I parked my ranger truck at the trailhead. The air smelled like hot pine needles and dust. A few families were still coming down the path, sweaty and happy, holding little plastic water bottles and talking about dinner. I asked them if they'd seen a man hiking alone, mid-20s, blue shirt, baseball cap. Most shook their heads. One older guy said, "Saw someone sitting off-trail about a mile in. Might have been him." Off-trail. That's never a good sign. I started up the trail with my radio, first aid kit, and flashlight, telling myself it was probably simple. Twisted ankle. Dehydration. Panic. Something manageable. The trail climbed in switchbacks, cutting across the slope of the mountain like a zipper. Each bend gave you a view of the valley dropping away behind you, the road far below like a thin gray snake. About 30 minutes in, I found the first sign. A baseball cap, sitting on a rock beside the path. I picked it up and looked inside the brim. It was sweat-stained and smelled like cheap cologne. I checked the underside where people sometimes write their names. There it was. Eric. My stomach tightened. I radioed dispatch. I found his cap about half a mile past marker 3. Continuing up. Dispatch crackled back. Copy. Sunset in 45. Be careful. I moved on faster now. The forest got thicker the higher I went. The trail narrowed, and the trees pressed in close. The wind stopped. And that's when the quiet started to feel heavy, like the air itself was listening. I rounded another switchback, and I heard it. A voice. Soft, distant, like it was floating up from below the slope. Hey! I froze. It sounded like a man. Hey, over here! My first thought was relief. Then the second thought hit me. It didn't sound panicked. It sounded casual. Like someone calling you over at a grocery store. I stepped to the edge of the trail and looked down through the trees. The slope dropped steep, tangled with brush and boulders. Hello? I called before I could stop myself. The voice stopped instantly. No. Thank God. No. Help. Just silence. My skin prickled. I remembered Carden's rule. Don't answer. I lifted my radio, quietly. Dispatch, I heard a male voice calling from downslope near marker 4. No visual. Copy. Could be him. Continue, but don't leave the trail alone. I swallowed and kept moving upward, trying to listen for movement. 5 minutes passed. Then I heard it again. Only this time, it wasn't hey. It was my name. Jason. I actually stopped breathing. There was no reason anyone out there should know my name. I hadn't been at the park long. I didn't talk to hikers like that. My name wasn't on some big sign. It wasn't painted on my uniform in giant letters either, just a small stitched patch. Still, it was clear as day. Jason. It came from behind me. Not down the slope. Not ahead. Behind. I turned slowly, flashlight in hand, scanning the trail I'd just walked. Nothing. Just trees and shadow and the long curve of the switchback fading into the darkening woods. I forced myself to keep walking. Then it came again, closer. Jason, wait! Not shouted. Not strained. Like a friend asking you to stop. My heart thumped so hard I could feel it in my throat. I didn't respond this time. I didn't even look back. I just walked faster, almost jogging. And that's when I heard footsteps. Not on the trail. On the brush beside it. Something moving parallel to me, staying just out of sight. Branches snapping, leaves crunching, but always matching my pace. Every time I stopped, it stopped. Every time I moved, it moved. I told myself it was a deer. But deer don't call you by name. And deer don't pace you like they're escorting you somewhere. I radioed dispatch again, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm hearing movement off trail. Possibly animal. Also heard someone calling my name. There was a pause. Then dispatch said, Repeat that last part? I didn't want to say it again. I heard someone calling my name. I repeated quieter. Another pause. Then, copy. Stay on trail. If anything escalates, return to trailhead. I kept going, moving into deeper shade as the sun slipped behind the ridge. I reached a clearing where the trail widened near a lookout point. There was a wooden railing, a bench, and a laminated sign showing the view. Something was sitting on the bench. At first I thought it was a pack. Then I saw the shape of legs. A man was slumped there, head down, arms hanging. My flashlight beam caught his shirt, blue. "Eric?" I called, careful now. He didn't move. I approached, step by step, ready for anything: injury, heatstroke, even death. When I got close enough, I saw his face. His eyes were open. And they were dry. No tears. No sweat. No blinking. His mouth was slightly open, like he'd been trying to speak. I reached out and touched his shoulder. His skin was cold. Not cool evening air. Cold. Cold, like he'd been dead for hours. I jerked back. My flashlight shook. And that's when I noticed something else. His boots. They were on the wrong feet. Left boot on the right foot. Right boot on the left. And the laces weren't tied. They were tucked neatly inside, like someone had dressed him in a hurry and didn't understand how shoes worked. My stomach rolled. I forced myself to radio dispatch. "I found him. He's deceased. Repeat, missing person located, deceased at lookout point near marker 6. Static hissed, then dispatch answered, suddenly very serious. "Copy. Hold position. Additional units en route." I stood there with the dead man, the forest around me turning black. Then I heard a voice again. Right behind my ear. Soft. Almost amused. "Jason." I spun around with my flashlight. Nothing. But the air felt close, like something had leaned in and then stepped back. I backed up until my shoulder hit the railing of the lookout. My hands were numb around the flashlight. And then the dead man on the bench moved. Just a little. His head lifted an inch, like a puppet tugged by a string. His mouth opened wider. And the voice came from him. Not a dead gasp. Not a groan. A perfect imitation of me. My own voice. It said, "Hello?" The exact way I'd answered earlier. My knees nearly gave out. I ran. I didn't run down the trail like a careful ranger. I ran like something was about to grab me. The whole way down, I heard footsteps in the brush keeping pace, always just out of sight. And once, only once, I heard Cardin's voice, clear as day, coming from the trees. "Don't answer." But Cardin wasn't there. When I reached the trailhead, my truck was waiting, empty and dark. The parking lot was deserted. The sky was fully night. I got inside and locked the doors, breathing hard. The radio crackled with dispatch. "Units are 5 minutes out. Confirm your location." I stared out at the trail entrance. At the black mouth of trees. Then I saw something at the edge of the path. A figure. Standing perfectly still. Too far to make out details. But it was shaped like a man. I raised my flashlight and shined it. The beam hit the figure's face. It was Eric. Same blue shirt. Same dead open eyes. And he lifted one hand slowly, like he was waving. Then his mouth moved. And through the glass, muffled but clear, I heard my name again. "Jason." When the other units arrived, the figure was gone. They went up the trail with me. We found the lookout. We found the bench. We found the railing. But Eric's body wasn't there. Only his boots sat on the bench, neatly placed side by side. Left and right. Correct this time. And inside each boot, tucked where your foot should be, was his baseball cap, with my name written on it in black marker. When people think of park rangers, they'd picture friendly folks handing out brochures and warning tourists not to feed bears. But a big part of the job is dealing with missing persons. It happens more than the average visitor wants to believe. People underestimate trails. They overestimate their bodies. They take selfies near cliffs. They wander off to pee and can't find the path again. They follow shortcuts. They chase sounds. And sometimes, they disappear in ways that don't make sense. This story came from a ranger named Alyssa who worked in a forested park known for its old campsites, ones that existed long before the park was official. There was a particular campground in her district where locals refused to stay. Not because of bears. Not because of weather. Because the place had a number. Site 14. Alyssa told me. Every year, at least one family asks to switch when they get assigned 14. Every year somebody says their grandma told them not to sleep there. She assumed it was superstition. Then she worked a night shift there. It started with a missing kid. A family from out of state checked in around noon, set up at Site 12, and spent the afternoon swimming in the river. Their daughter, Madison, was 9. Curly hair, pink jacket, freckles, the kind of kid who asked you a million questions and said cool to everything you told her. At around 7:30 p.m., Alyssa was driving through the campground doing a quick check, making sure fires were contained, noise wasn't getting out of hand. She saw Madison near the bathrooms, skipping stones across a puddle by herself. Alyssa slowed and rolled down her window. Hey, where are your parents? Madison pointed down toward the river path. They're back there. I'm just waiting for them. Alyssa didn't like it, but it wasn't an emergency. She reminded Madison to stay near her campsite and drove on. 10 minutes later, Alyssa got a call over the Ranger channel, frantic parents at the kiosk. Their daughter was missing. Alyssa felt her stomach drop immediately. She turned the truck around and sped back. When she arrived at Site 12, the parents were standing in the dirt, calling Madison's name like their voices could reach into the trees and pull her back out. Alyssa tried to calm them. Asked the basic questions. When was the last time you saw her? What was she wearing? Did she mention going somewhere? The mother was crying, saying, "She was right here. She was right here." The father kept looking toward the river path like he expected Madison to come strolling out, annoyed that everyone was making a big deal. Alyssa radioed in a missing child report. The park went into alert mode. Nearby rangers started arriving. Volunteers began combing trails with flashlights. And that's when the weird detail came up. The mother said, "She was playing near Site 14 earlier. She thought it was funny that it had a number." Alyssa glanced towards Site 14. It was empty. No tent. No fire. No car. Just a picnic table and a fire ring. But the air around it looked darker, like the shadows sat heavier there. Alyssa walked over with her flashlight, sweeping the ground. At the edge of Site 14, just past the boundary marker, she found a child's shoe. Small. Pink. Madison's. The father ran up behind her and snatched it, like holding it would undo reality. "Madison!" he screamed into the woods. And then, from somewhere deep between the trees, a voice answered. Not Madison's. A woman's. Soft, distant. Singing. It was a lullaby. Alyssa said the moment she heard it, she felt a cold pressure behind her eyes, like the start of a headache. The other rangers heard it too. Everyone went silent at once. The singing drifted through the campground like smoke. The mother whispered, "That's not That's not her. Alyssa radioed dispatch and told them they had an audio lead. Dispatch told them to stay calm, continue the grid search, and avoid splitting up. So, of course, people split up. Alyssa and another ranger, Mark, followed the sound with flashlights, an AK-9 handler behind them. The singing kept moving. Every time they got closer, it seemed to slide deeper into the forest, staying just barely out of reach. They crossed a shallow ditch and entered a section of trees older than the rest. Thick trunks. Moss. The smell of wet earth. The K9 started whining. Then it stopped walking entirely. The handler tugged gently. "Come on," he whispered. The dog backed up instead, tail tucked, ears flat. It stared into the trees like it was watching something breathe. Alyssa felt her own instincts screaming the same thing. Turn around. But she couldn't. Because the singing changed. It stopped being a lullaby. It became a child humming. Madison's age. Madison's range. Not words, just a melody. And then Madison's voice said, clear and near, "Mom?" The mother, who had followed despite being told not to, ran forward instantly. "Madison!" Alyssa grabbed her arm. "No! Stop!" But the mother yanked free and sprinted toward the sound, disappearing between the trees. Alyssa swore and chased after her with Mark right behind. They ran maybe 20 yards before the forest opened into a small clearing. And in the middle of the clearing was a campsite. Not an official one. No numbered post. No picnic table. But there was a fire ring made of stones. And a tent. An old canvas tent that looked like it belonged in a black and white photo. It was standing there like someone had set it up decades ago and never took it down. The mother slowed, panting, eyes locked on the tent flap. From inside, Madison's voice whispered, "Mom, I'm here." The mother walked toward it like she was hypnotized. Alyssa moved to block her. Mark shined his flashlight at the tent. And the beam didn't reflect right. It didn't bounce off canvas the way it should. It looked like the light was being swallowed. Alyssa stepped closer and called, "Madison! If you're in there, say your last name." There was a pause. Then Madison's voice said, perfectly, "Madison Harper." The mother sobbed. "That's her." But Alyssa noticed something. Madison's last name was Harlow. Not Harper. Alyssa had just heard it over the radio minutes earlier. And now something was guessing. "Trying." Mark whispered, "Alyssa, look." He pointed to the ground beside the tent. There were footprints. Small bare footprints. Leading in circles around the tent, over and over, like someone had been walking around it for hours. And mixed in with them were larger prints. Adult-sized. Barefoot. But wrong. The toes were too long. The heel too narrow. Like something that had learned feet from watching humans, not from being one. Alyssa backed up, heart hammering. "Ma'am," she said to the mother, voice shaking, "we need to go. Right now." The mother didn't listen. She lunged forward and grabbed the tent flap, yanking it open. Alyssa expected to see Madison curled inside, crying. Instead, the tent was empty. No sleeping bag. No backpack. Just darkness. Deep, thick darkness like a hole. And from that darkness, something whispered. Not Madison. Not a woman. Something layered, like multiple voices stacked on top of each other. It said, "Mom!" The mother screamed. And the tent moved. Not from wind. From inside. like something shifted its weight. Alyssa grabbed the mother from behind and dragged her backward, nearly falling. Mark raised his flashlight and stepped forward like an idiot, trying to see. Then the tent flap lifted by itself. Slowly. Like a hand was pulling it aside from within. Alyssa saw a shape inside. Not a person. Too tall. Crouched. And its face caught the edge of the flashlight beam for half a second. It looked like a face made out of stretched skin. Too smooth. No clear features. But it was trying to smile. The K9 handler shouted from behind them. Back up! The dog was barking now, furious, terrified. Alyssa pulled the mother away, and they ran. As they ran, Madison's voice followed them through the trees. Only now it was laughing. A child's laugh at first. Then lower. Then deeper. Until it sounded like an adult pretending to be a child and doing a terrible job. They burst back into the campground. Other rangers rushed to them, demanding to know what happened. Alyssa tried to explain, but her mouth wouldn't form the words. All she could do was point toward the woods and shake her head. The search continued all night. They brought in more units at dawn. Dogs. Drones. Helicopters. They searched trails, riverbanks, ravines. They never found Madison. Not a scrap of clothing. Not a bone. Not a backpack. But they did find something at Site 14. A new sign nailed into the tree beside the number marker. It wasn't official park equipment. It was a piece of wood, hand-cut, with words carved into it. The carving looked fresh. Like it had been done overnight. It said, "She came inside. So you couldn't." Alyssa told me the park removed the sign and pretended it never existed. But after that, whenever a family checked in and got assigned Site 14, Alyssa always moved them. And if anyone asked why, she'd just say, "It's unstable ground." Because the truth was worse. The ground there wasn't unstable. It was hungry. This last story is the kind that makes you question how well you really know a place. Because we all assume maps are honest. We assume if something exists, if a road exists, or a building exists, it's been documented. But forests have a way of swallowing history. And sometimes they spit it back out when you're not ready. This story came from a backcountry ranger named Devin. He worked long stretches alone, doing trail maintenance, checking remote camps, and inspecting old structures. He told me there was an area in his park that had been closed off for years due to erosion. Officially, it was unsafe. Unofficially, rangers avoided it because weird calls came from there. Like hikers reporting lights in a closed zone. Or hearing radio chatter on dead frequencies. Or seeing a structure that no one could explain. Devin didn't believe in ghost stories. So when he got assigned a routine boundary check near that closed zone, he treated it like any other day. He hiked in early morning with a pack, a radio, and a paper map. The weather was perfect. Birds were out. The woods smelled clean. Around noon, he reached the old boundary line where the maintained trail ended. Beyond that was unofficial ground, no signage, no markers, just wilderness. Devin said he noticed something immediately. A path. Not a trail on the map. But a path worn into the dirt like it had been walked recently. He followed it. He told me. I knew I shouldn't have. But it was there like an invitation. The path led him deeper through thick woods, then up a rise. And that's where he saw it. A watchtower. A tall wooden fire lookout tower, the kind you see in old photos. 4 legs, ladder up the center, small enclosed room at the top. But it looked new. Not freshly built, exactly. More like it had been maintained. Like someone cared for it. Devin stood there staring, confused. Because the park had watchtowers, but all of them were on the map. All of them were documented, inspected, and used. This one wasn't. He radioed his station. "Hey, I'm at the boundary near Closed Zone C. There's a lookout tower out here. Can you confirm if there's a structure on record?" The radio crackled. Then a voice answered. Not dispatch. Not a coworker he recognized. Just a calm male voice that said, "Climb up." Devin froze. He tried again. "Station, did you copy?" The radio hissed. Then the same voice. "Climb up. You'll see." Devin checked his channel. It was correct. He tried switching channels. Same voice. "Climb up." His first instinct was to leave. But then he noticed something that changed his mind. At the base of the tower, nailed into one of the wooden legs, was a missing person flyer. A printed flyer, weather-worn but readable. It had a photo of a man. And Devin recognized the face immediately. Because that missing hiker had disappeared 2 months earlier. It was still an active case. Devin swallowed and stepped closer. Under the photo were the words, "Last seen, near Closed Zone C." Devin said his skin went cold. Because he was standing in Closed Zone C. And now, in the middle of nowhere, was a flyer that shouldn't be there, attached to a tower that shouldn't exist. He looked up at the ladder. It went straight up into shadow. And that's when he heard it. A faint tapping from above. Like someone knocking on wood. Tap, tap, tap. Devin called out. "Hello?" The tapping stopped. Then something scraped inside the lookout room at the top, like a chair dragged across the floor. Devin should have left. But he climbed. He told me later. "I felt like I was being pulled by curiosity. Like the tower wanted me up there." Each rung creaked under his weight. The forest below got smaller, quieter. Halfway up, his radio crackled again. "Devin." This time, it said his name. And the voice sounded like his supervisor, Lyle. "Devin, what are you doing out there?" Devin stopped climbing and pressed the radio. "Lyle? I'm at the Closed Zone boundary. There's a tower here that's not on the map." A pause. Then Lyle's voice strained. "Devin, there is no tower." Devin's stomach dropped. He looked up. The tower was right there. His hands were on it. Lyle said, "Devin, get back to the trail. Now." Devin started to climb down. And then something happened that he still can't explain. The ladder shifted. Not physically, like it bent. Like the distance between rungs changed. Devin stepped down, expecting his boot to land on the next rung. It wasn't there. His foot swung through empty air. He clung tighter, heart pounding, and looked down. The ground was farther than it should have been. The tower looked taller. Like it had stretched. Devin gritted his teeth and climbed down faster, eyes locked on the rungs. His radio crackled again. But it wasn't Lyle anymore. It was that calm male voice. Soft and close. "Don't go." Devin kept climbing down. The voice continued. "We found him. He's up here. Come back up." Devin didn't answer. He reached the bottom, stumbled back, and looked up. The top room of the tower had a window. And in that window, a face appeared. A man's face. Pale. Eyes wide. Mouth moving like he was trying to shout. Devin recognized him. It was the missing hiker from the flyer. Devin took a step forward instinctively. Then the man's expression changed. His eyes stopped looking human. They went flat, like glass marbles. His mouth stretched into a smile that didn't fit his face. And he raised one hand to the window. His fingers pressed against the glass from the inside. Then, slowly, he pointed down. Right at Devin. Devin ran. He sprinted back through the trees, following the path as fast as he could, branches whipping his face, pack bouncing. Behind him, the forest stayed silent. Too silent. No birds. No wind. Just his own breath and the pounding of his boots. He didn't stop until he hit the maintained trail. Only then did the normal forest sounds return, like someone had flipped a switch back on. Devin radioed again, voice shaking. Lyle, I'm back on trail. I saw the missing hiker. He was in the tower. Lyle replied instantly, voice tight. Devin, we have your GPS ping. You never left the maintained trail. Devin froze. What? Lyle said. Your tracker shows you standing on the boundary line this whole time. You didn't move into the closed zone. Devin looked around. He was on the trail. On the safe side. He could see the boundary marker a few yards away. And beyond it was normal forest. No path. No tower. No flyer. Just trees. Devin walked to the boundary line slowly, like he expected something to jump out. He stepped 1 foot past the marker. Nothing. He stepped another. Still nothing. He pushed deeper, searching for that worn path. It wasn't there. He searched for 2 hours until his shift ended. No tower. No flyer. No footprints. That night, in the ranger station, Lyle sat Devin down and asked him, very carefully, to describe everything again. When Devin mentioned the voice on the radio saying, "Climb up," Lyle's face tightened. He stood up, walked to a locked cabinet, and pulled out an old folder. Inside were reports. Handwritten notes from rangers years ago. Complaints about phantom structures. Stories about a tower not on the map. And missing person cases that all had the same detail. Last transmission heard on Ranger radio. A calm male voice saying, "Climb up." Devin asked, "Who is it?" Lyle didn't answer right away. He just said, "We don't go into closed zone C." Devin said, "But the missing hiker." Lyle cut him off. "Devin," he said, voice low, "that man you saw in the window, he's not alive." Devin felt his mouth go dry. "How do you know?" Lyle looked him dead in the eye. "Because we found him 3 weeks ago." Devin's stomach turned to ice. Lyle continued, "We found what was left of him in a ravine miles away. Dental records confirmed it." Devin sat there in silence, unable to process it. Then he whispered, "So what did I see?" Lyle didn't have an answer. But before Devin went home, Lyle warned him of one last thing. "If you ever hear a voice on the radio that isn't dispatch, if it ever tells you to climb, don't respond. Don't follow it. And whatever you do..." Devin finished the sentence for him, because now he understood. "Don't answer when it says your name." That night, Devin lay in bed, trying to convince himself it was stress. Heat. Isolation. A trick of sound and fear. At 3:11 a.m., His phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. No area code he recognized. Just a photo. A blurry picture of a forest watchtower. And in the window at the top, Devon's own face. Pale. Wide-eyed. Mouth moving like he was screaming. Under the photo, one line of text. Climb up. You're almost here. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.